oil system to natural gas system. Right? Oil is rapidly becoming a thing of the past. Right? So what was the problem with the oil system? What was the role of the United States in maintaining the oil system? Right? Things like that. And second, so natural gas, to understand natural gas, right, additionally is important. Right? That's the first point I want to make. And there will be additional reading article about the shale revolution. So you need to read that Friday. Okay, staying home Friday, read the shale revolution article on the shale revolution, natural gas shale revolution. You need to read that, and you will understand that. Now, second point, second topic actually, second smaller topic today is Central Asia that I want to emphasize. Central Asia. Why Central Asia? This chapter has some pages on Central Asia. Why Central Asia is important, right? We need to understand that. Why should we study Central Asia as far as energy, global energy is concerned? Central Asia is important because Central Asia emerged as a replacement of the Middle East. Okay? As the oil system dissipates, okay, the Middle East, the importance of Middle East also dissipated. Then Central Asia emerged as a replacement for the Central Asia. So people call Central Asia second Middle East, new Middle East. Here, Central Asia is a good, excellent example where how international conflicts occur regarding energy. Okay, it's a typical experimental case. That's why we need to study Central Asia as a case. And about Central Asia, you are going to read my article. I wrote another article on the energy politics of Central Asia, very recent, just a couple of months ago. So you are going to read my article again. Okay. And number three. When we study global finance, one of the key questions we addressed was why currencies go up and down. Right? Why currencies go up and down. Again, about energy, we need to address questions like why oil prices go up and down. That's the number 3 question. Why oil prices go up and down? We need to study that. Number 4. Energy system crisis, either oil system or natural gas system or whatever. Energy system crisis take the form of oil price crisis, energy price crisis, right? Energy price crisis. We had 2 crises in contemporary history. Okay, we had 2 energy crises. One in the 70s, 1972. Twin crisis, 1972, 1979. Twin crisis in the 70s. That was the first energy crisis. And we had another energy crisis in the 2000s. 2000s. Okay, we have just passed the tunnel of energy crisis. Not sure maybe we are still in it. We may be just passing the tunnel of energy crisis, 2000s. So there have been two energy crises in contemporary history. What's the difference? What's the difference between energy crisis 70s, energy crisis in the 2000s? That's number 4 question. Yes, these are the questions we need to look at. Now, this chapter, this section on world energy begins with the current composition of energy consumption. Okay. Here, I mean, this chapter has some confusion over, which terminology we use. Like he uses sometimes natural resources, or sometimes energy sources, right? Energy resources, in parentheses, fuels, right? Natural resources probably might include not only energy, but also minerals and even agricultural crops, right? So natural resources must be bigger concept than energy resources. So energy resources, or simply energy, might include the following four. Number 1, oil. Second, coal, natural gas, and hydro and nuclear. These 4 combine to comprise energy or fuels. Energy or fuels, right? If you include minerals, then it becomes natural resources. Okay, that's the definition he is giving. Now, having given the 4 types of energies, okay, 4 types of energy resources, we want to learn what energy resource we use more. Okay, what is the most commonly used type of energy? Oil. Okay, about 40%. About 40%. And coal comes next, 30%. Then natural gas, 25%. Then hydro and nuclear, the remaining 5%. Again, energy has 2 kinds. Energy has 2 kinds. Fossil fuel, non-fossil fuel. 2 kinds. Okay? Oil, coal, natural gas, all fossil fuels. 95%. 95%, we rely on fossil fuel energy. Difference between fossil fuel and non-fossil fuel. Fossil fuel emits, right? When you burn it, CO2s come out of it. That's fossil fuel. Non-fossil fuel, clean, much cleaner than, right? Almost 0 CO2. That's non-fossil fuel. Now, remember, oil, coal, natural gas, these 3 fossil fuels. Different countries have different combinations of this, okay? This is just average score, average mix, okay? Individual countries come in all different combinations of different, okay, energy mix. Like, for instance, China is a way different picture. China, coal 75%. Coal 75%. China. That's Chinese energy mix. This energy mix is close to OECD energy mix. Okay, OECD country energy mix. This is just general average energy mix. Okay, China is an outlier. China is an outlier. The dirty air, Chinese suffer. That's because of this, right? Coal consumption, right? So China should drastically come down on the coal consumption. Clearly, 75%. They need to reduce it down to at least 30% from 75%. Then natural gas, China, natural gas is cleaner than coal, cleaner than oil. Okay? So China should increase the consumption of natural gas. Natural gas consumption, 4%. Only 4%. Coal used to be the top energy of the 19th century. Okay? Although it is rolled over to the 20th century, still being used, but coal originally the energy of the 19th century. Oil is the energy of the 20th century. Okay? Although we are moving away from it. We are moving away from oil more and more, but oil definitely is the energy of the 20th century. What energy will be used most 21st century? That's the question. What comes after oil? That's the question. Temporarily, natural gas. Natural gas. Okay, so temporarily, natural gas will be the energy of the 21st century. I'm not sure whether natural gas will be used for 100 years, but at least 40 or 50 years. So natural gas temporarily will be the energy of the 21st century. That's why we study natural gas. That's why we study shale gas. Now, 95% of energy we use is fossil fuel. Where are these fossil fuels used most? Are these used for transportation? Are these used for heating? Or are these used for cooking? Or are these used for factories? Where are these fossil fuels used most, according to textbook? According to textbook, not cooking, right? Not transportation, not home heating, but power plants. Power plants. Okay? So power plant, electricity generation, right? Electricity generation in power plants is the biggest source of fossil fuel consumption. Okay? Power plants is the biggest source of fossil fuel consumption. Again, some details. In general, fossil fuel used most for power plants. That is correct. But oil, coal, natural gas individually have different consumption pattern. Okay? So if you go to individual energy source, might be different. Like for instance, oil, I don't think oil is used most for power plants. Oil is mostly transportation. Right? Oil is mostly transportation. Probably coal is used most for power plants, individually, coal still. Although natural gas is replacing coal as power plant source. Okay, so individually it might be different. But in general, yes, power plant, biggest source of fossil fuel. Let's follow it. Let's adopt that textbook information. Now, next. The textbook discusses sort of a division between rich countries and poor countries regarding energy consumption. Let's discuss that. Division between rich countries and poor countries. This is important to understand. Particularly the politics of energy, international energy, the politics of global energy. The first step in understanding global energy politics is just this pattern, consumption pattern between rich countries and poor countries. Here, which group of countries consumes more energy? According to the textbook, which group of countries? Rich countries consume more or poor countries consume more? Rich countries consume more, poor countries consume more. Rich countries consume more. Okay, rich countries consume more. And let me ask you another question. The flip side of the question is, which countries provide raw materials and energy? Poor countries. Yes, this is just step one. This is step one in understanding global energy politics. In other words, rich countries, they are consumers of energy. Okay? Poor countries, they are suppliers. Okay? This is the basic first step in understanding global energy politics. Okay? So rich countries are supplied by poor countries. Okay. And this consumption pattern is usually explained in terms of energy consumption per person. Right? Energy consumption per person. Okay? Because the picture will be different if you use the total energy consumption. Right? The total energy consumption, China surpassed the US 2010. Total energy consumption. Okay? So China and the United States, in their global warming negotiations, they point their fingers to each other. You are to blame for, right? Like energy consumption. Because when America make accusations about China, they use total amount. Then China make accusations about the US, they rely on consumption per person. Consumption per person clearly here big difference. North America 25 times. North America 25 times as much as Asia and Africa combined. That's the difference. It's a huge difference. Although Asia and Africa, as they grow economically, right, their energy consumption growing more and more. But still, North America, advanced region, much bigger than these developing poor countries. using more energy means two different things. Number one, using more energy means the economy itself is more active. The size of the economy, it means the size of the economy. But second, on the other hand, you use more energy because your economy is much more inefficient in terms of energy saving, energy efficiency, right? So here, within the advanced country group, different advanced countries have different levels of energy efficiency. Most efficient group, Europe and Japan, most efficient group. Okay, so they tend not to use energy within the group, although North America advanced country, they use more energy, but within the energy advanced group, Japan and Europe, they tend not to use energy, okay? Relatively mild consuming country. In North America, both Canada and the United States, much more inefficient. Much more inefficient. And they include former Soviet republics in the advanced group here. And most inefficient group is the former Soviet republics, Russia and Eastern European countries they mean. Next, having said this, when these consuming rich countries and exporting, supplying poor countries, when they meet, okay, when they exchange what they have, that is international energy trade. International energy trade. That's how international energy trade occurs. The last paragraph. International trade in energy, right? International trade in energy plays a vital role in the world economy. Question here. Put simply, energy trade, okay? Let's call it energy trade. What's the difference between energy trade and manufacturing trade? Right? Here it says energy trade plays a vital role in the world economy. Right? Energy trade. I mentioned this before. You can live, as a country, you can live without cars imported from some country. Okay? But you cannot live, okay? You cannot live as a country without oil and gas being imported from some country, right? The urgency of the importance of trade, right? There's a huge difference. Energy trade and normal, right, manufacturing trade. There's a huge difference. Energy trade is much more a state business. Right? Much more state business, much more strategic. Strategic. You can't leave energy trade to the whims of companies or commerce. The state must control. The state must control, because it affects the whole country. That's energy trade is all about. So as a scholar, I studied mostly trade in oil, right? Trade in oil, because the 20th century energy system of the 20th century mostly about oil system, because natural gas still not universally used, right? Coal used a lot, but coal, we were departing with coal, right? So oil was central. So oil trade was most important over the last 100 years, right? Again, oil trade was very much strategic, very much strategic. And bifurcated structure, right? Bifurcated structure. In other words, those who consume, those who supply, divided. That's oil. Otherwise, it's not strategic. If oil is found everywhere, then oil is not much of politics, just economics. Since oil is so unevenly found, unevenly distributed, okay, in other words, few countries have it underground, then it becomes strategic. Then trade structure is so imbalanced and becoming strategic, which was, right? So now, yeah, this says the number line 3 from the top, the last paragraph. Although all forms of energy are traded internationally, okay? All forms of energy are traded internationally. All forms of energy, meaning coal is traded, right? Natural gas is traded, right? Nuclear energy is traded, but the most important by far is oil. Oil trade has been most important. Most important. Because most politicized. Most politicized. And we need to look one by one, look into one by one as energy source. Like, how much is natural gas trade is politicized, strategic. That's an emerging topic. That's an emerging topic. Okay, where is natural gas found? Is natural gas found only in a few countries, as in oil? That's the question we're asking. Right? Is natural gas trade same as oil trade? That's the question we have to ask. Right? He's giving an answer to coal. Coal is relatively discovered in many countries. That's what it says in the section on minerals. So coal no longer is highly strategic. Minerals, much better than oil and gas. Minerals relatively found in many places, evenly distributed. Okay? Particularly oil is unevenly distributed. Likewise, natural gas. So oil and gas, key to strategic energy sources. Read the next line. The most important by far is oil. And what's the next line? Cheapest to transport. Cheapest to transport. This is important. Over long distances. Over long distances. You need to remember this. Oil is strategic. Oil trade is strategic. But cheapest. Cheapest to transport over long distances. This compares eloquently to natural gas. Okay, this will be different. This will be different regarding natural gas. Natural gas is not cheap over long distances. Okay, natural gas highly expensive over long distances. That's a problem. That's a problem. The reason oil was traded and used for many years is the transportation, easy transportation. Okay? Easy transportation. But we are moving to natural gas, but natural gas has many limits. One of the limits is justice, expensive transportation. Natural gas, expensive transportation. How is natural gas transported? Natural gas transported either overland pipeline, or boats, special boats, ships, expensive ships over long distances. Short distances, you can ship it through overland pipeline, but longer distances, you need special ships. Very expensive ships, right? Millions and millions of dollars of ships, you need that. That makes natural gas transportation very expensive in transportation. And that's a limit. That's a limit to natural gas consumption. Next sentence. Next sentence, we are still on oil trade in the past oil system. Who are the suppliers? This textbook lists the suppliers, oil suppliers, right? Russia. Russia was one of the prominent suppliers of oil. And these hard currency earnings, dollar earnings, helped out. Russia was almost propped up by these oil revenues. Then comes Venezuela and Mexico in Latin America, and Nigeria and Angola in Africa. These are all major oil exporters. Major oil exporters. So Russia, Latin America, Africa. From the Middle East, bigger sources of oil exports come from the Middle East, right? Middle East. Those are the biggest exporters, Middle East. Particularly the Persian Gulf countries, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iran, Iraq, and UAE, the country that I visited, UAE, then Qatar, Bahrain, Oman. Qatar is, formerly oil exporter, right? Qatar. Currently, the biggest natural gas exporter. Qatar, the biggest natural gas exporter. if you study energy issues, you need, you need to use a lot of numbers, data. Like for instance here, the list of big oil importers, right? The list of big rankings of big oil importers, rankings of big oil exporters, right? You need that. You need that. That's readily available everywhere. Rankings of oil importers, rankings of big oil exporters. Number one oil exporter, Saudi and Russia, they exchange their places from time to time. Okay? Saudi and Russia, they're number one, number two. And another type of like a rankings is, which is interesting, is like the rankings of reserves. The rankings of reserves here. Next line. Saudi Arabia is the largest oil exporter, but at the same time, largest oil reserve holder. So you need two kinds of rankings. Exporter, rankings of exporters, rankings of big reserve holders, right? Big reserve holders, which is different. Reserve meaning the amount you have underground. Okay, the amount you have underground, remaining. Rankings of exporters meaning the amount you export. Dig it up, put it on the market, export. That's the rankings of exports. Rankings of reserves. Okay? Different rankings. So Saudi, number one reserve holder, number one exporter. Now, read the next line. The politics of world energy revolve around Middle Eastern oil. I think this is important sentence. The politics of world energy in the 20th century, revolved around Middle Eastern oil. This is important, Middle Eastern oil. Okay? In other words, global energy politics in the 20th century, which has become a thing of the past, global energy politics in the 20th century was about Middle East and was about oil. That's what it means. Middle East was at the center, and it was about oil. Okay? And one more, America led. Okay? America led. The US was leading this politics. Sometimes providing security mechanism to make sure that oil is supplied without disruption. America made a lot of efforts to, right, make sure that oil is always freely flowing from the Middle East, okay, using military power. So America played a vital role, okay, to maintain energy security. So three things. It was about Middle East. There are African exporters and Russia was there, but Middle East was at the center. And it was about oil, not natural gas, not coal, right? And America was at the, okay? These three things. I want to emphasize these three things. Middle East, oil, the United States. Okay? Now, question. What happens after the oil system broke up? Are these three qualities, are these three qualities still maintained or disappear? Right? oil is being replaced by natural gas. Okay? So after oil, natural gas. In terms of location, where? Right? If it is about natural gas, then if not the Middle East, then where? Right? Then another question, is the United States still going to make sure natural gas is being supplied freely without disruption? So is the United States going to play a vital role in the natural gas system, post-oil system, so to speak? Yeah, post-oil system, that's a better term. Post-oil system. What are the main characteristics of the post-oil system? That's the better way of putting it. What are the main characteristics of the emerging post-oil system? Right? Clearly, natural gas is playing a vital role. Right? The Middle East is decreasing in importance. Right? America may be losing power. So read the British article. Read the British article and you will get some answers. Central Asia is a case. Central Asia is a case. Okay? Whether or not America is still playing a vital role, and maybe any other states are playing additional role, you need to read my article about Central Asia. Take a 5-minute break and continue. Because there is a consensus among some countries here. We can expel them. So the Asia Pacific and North America. So oil was supplied to these 3 different consumers, importers. Okay, 3 different importers. But these different 3 big importers have different kind of policies. Different policies. And different urgency, so to speak. The most urgent group in terms of imports are Asia Pacific group. Most dependent. Most dependent. Because the Asia Pacific group don't have domestic production. Asia Pacific group don't have domestic production. Almost solely depend on import sources. So most urgent and dependent. And most expensive. Most expensive. It's not same price. You pay more. Asia Pacific countries paid more. Premium. They paid premium. It's unfair system. It's unfair system. The oil system was unfair in a way that Asia Pacific countries paid a premium. Western Europe, they were dependent, but they had domestic sources also. So not as much dependent as Asia Pacific. Okay? They have different import sources nearby, like North Africa. Western Europe can be supplied by different sources. Western, if not the Middle East. If not the Middle East, they have North Africa. They have internal sources also, European sources, right? And they have Russia nearby. Russia is the biggest source of oil. Okay, Russia, Europe, they're mutually dependent. Russia, Europe, they were mutually dependent. North America U.S. biggest consumer. My question here, one question I can ask. Over the last 100 years, over the last 50 years, which country exported most oil to the United States? Some people misunderstand it. Many people think that Saudi Arabia must be the #1 exporter to the United States. No. Canada is the biggest exporter to the United States. Saudi doesn't export a whole lot of oil to the United States. Canada is the biggest exporter. So America, again, relatively like multiple sources of imports. So the Asia Pacific, mostly Middle East. Mostly Middle East. Another point. Does Russia export oil, a lot of oil, to the Asia Pacific? No. No. Never. Russia, the Asia Pacific, close, right? Close. But Russia doesn't export, has not exported much oil to the Asia Pacific. Russia only looked to the Western Europe, Western European side, okay? Not to the Asia Pacific side. There is no infrastructure connecting Russia and the Asia Pacific. There's no infrastructure. There's no pipeline. One of the latest developments here in the Asia Pacific is to build new infrastructure connecting Russia and the Asia Pacific, including railroad, including pipelines, including electricity connections, even through North Korea, right? That's what we are discussing.
Yes, through North Korea to South
Sure.
to Japan.
Oh, all the way to Japan.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. That's now next. Now, so we covered pretty much the basics of global oil politics. So who imports, who exports. I think that this uneven distribution in and of itself is a problem that leads to conflicts. Now, a little bit of history. Now, the Middle East was the center of oil supply. What did rich countries do about the Middle East? Right? We are entering the politics area here. Middle East was found to be a valuable source of oil. Okay, early 20th century, Middle East was discovered as a good source of oil. Okay, geologists and company scientists, they visited Middle East. They found huge discovery of oil reserves there. Then what did these rich countries do? Mostly European countries and America. European countries, the US, they made Middle East as #1 colonies. Okay? Here imperialism comes in. Okay? Energy, imperialism combined. Energy and imperialism combined. Early 20th century, European countries ventured into the Middle Eastern, okay, no man's land. Then they colonized the Middle Eastern area. Okay? America, according to textbook, America had a different strategy. America did not colonize per se, but instead America used multinational oil companies. Okay? European strategy was more direct colonization, but American strategy was commercial business oriented. So MNCs, major oil corporations, they helped these Middle Eastern countries to develop oil and gas. Different strategies. European countries, America, different strategies. So here, the US did not claim colonies or protectorates. Okay? So America was not an imperialist. That's the point. Do you get it? Was the US an imperial power? So here, the author says, Europeans were imperialists. Okay? But Americans were not. Okay? Government was not involved, at least. US government was not involved. Only companies were involved. Okay? So US, like a Middle Eastern campaign was more or less by company-driven, whereas Europeans were government-driven. Right? They set up colonies, but Americans did not. So this kind of imperial stage or initial like a commercial development stage went on between 1920s, 1960s. That's stage one, period one, 1920s, 1960s. Early commercial development or imperial stage. What was the outcome? What was the outcome of this? Because of this Western-led oil and gas development in the Middle East, the outcome was oil price was low or high? Was the price high or low because of this at that stage, 1920s, 60s? Low, right? Oil prices were low. So that consumers in the rich countries, they were enjoying cheap energy, abundant cheap energy. That's the point. That's important. Abundant cheap energy was available because of this. And the last sentence, yet local rulers, local governments depended on the expertise and capital investment of these companies. This is important. What does that mean? In other words, Middle Eastern local countries, local governments, they depended on the expertise and capital of US oil companies. Right. Right. That defines this period. Like for instance, you dig up raw oil, right? Thick raw oil. Then you need to process it. You need to process it. You can't put it in the car. The raw oil, you can't put it in the car. You need to process it. Purify it. You need to purify it, right? In the petrochemical facility, you need petrochemical facility. Middle Eastern countries, they didn't have it. They didn't have processing factories in the Middle East. So these Western oil corporations, they dig it up and ship it to the US and process it there. Okay? And a lot of value added in the United States. So that's how Middle Eastern countries were dependent on US major companies. Okay? And they split the profit. Split the profit. Split the profit. Now, stage two. Stage two begins 70s. Stage two begins 70s. Period two, 70s. What happened in 70s? These Middle Eastern countries who are dependent on U.S. oil corporations, they revolted. They revolted against U.S. Oil corporations. Okay? They revolted. And that rebellion came in the form of energy crisis. Energy crisis. Look at this. 1973, there was a war. Again, there was a war. During an Arab-Israeli war, Israel is involved, Islamic countries, okay? Then oil-producing Arab countries blaming the United States, and then they decided to stop exports. Okay, that's what happened. Then this supply disruption, because of that, oil prices skyrocketed. That's energy crisis. Then, when oil prices skyrocketed, global economy went into recession. Went into recession. Then dollar crisis. Then Nixon sort of made a huge decision on decoupling the dollar, right, from the gold standard. That's exactly when that happened. Global economic recession. And high inflation, right? US and Europe, they suffered high inflation. Then 79, there's a smaller second twin energy crisis, right? This time Iran revolted. Second oil shock, twin oil shock. You know that President Carter, right? President Carter came in, then there was a hostage crisis, things like that. That's the late 70s. Up until Reagan took over, that crisis continued right up until the Reagan, right, took over. Now, this is period two. This is period two. Period three, which is not clearly identified in this chapter. Period three happens, period three begins with that sentence, by the mid-80s. This is period three. This is the beginning of period three, by the mid-80s. What happened period three? Lots of things happened period three, beginning mid-80s until 1999. That's period three. 1985, 1990. Period three. That's period three. What happened period three? Period three, this is important. There's a diversification of oil production. Diversification of oil production, location, oil production location. Okay? The Middle East no longer is the center of oil production, period three. That's diversification. In other words, US major oil corporations, they fed up with the Middle East. They fed up. They look for additional location of oil production. That characterizes period 3. Additional oil production regions. Where let me define here. Outside of OPEC. Outside of OPEC. North Sea. Okay, first North Sea. Britain, Norway. Alaska, Angola, Russia, and Central Asia. So non-OPEC, non-Middle Eastern oil production region began to emerge. Period 3. Particularly Central Asia. Particularly Central Asia. Central Asia was called New Middle East. New Middle East. Because the reserve itself is largest. The reserve of Central Asia is largest. So, you're going to read my article about Central Asia. The important point about my article about Central Asia is that how great powers competed to jockey for the position of strength in the Central Asian energy politics. Okay? So multiple new oil producing regions emerged. That's important. Okay, period 3. Second, what happened to oil prices? Did oil prices go up or go down? Go down. Oil prices go down. Right? Plummeted down to $20 per barrel. $20 per barrel. About Central Asia, the last paragraph, 405, page 405, last paragraph describes Central Asia. Let's talk about this after you read my article. Central Asia. Then next page, page 46, again Central Asia. Okay? These two paragraphs explain Central Asia. Read it. Now, 47. Page 47. Period 4. Period 4. Period 4 begins with 2000, the year 2000. What happened period 4? Period 4, number one, oil prices again began to rise. Oil prices began to rise. Okay? Oil prices began to rise. When was the peak point of oil prices? The peak point of oil prices, here, for a sentence, ultimately shooting up to $140 a barrel in 2008. July 2008, actually it was $148 per barrel, July 2008, sorry. July 2008, reached $148 per barrel. That's the peak point. Then oil prices began to come down again to $40, right? Then again back up to 80, 90, and currently about 110. Now, we need to discuss then why oil prices began to rise at that time, in this period 4. Then here, the question about what explains and why oil prices go up and down, right? Why oil prices go up and down. Why oil prices go up and down. About this period, let me tell you, there are two stages. In period 4, there are 2 stages. One stage, taxing stage. Taxing, you know, airplanes, tax, right? Then take off, right? Oil prices began to slowly rise beginning 2000. Okay, beginning 2000. The reason, number one reason, there's a huge demand from China and India, right? Huge demand from China, India. That's a demand factor. Supply factor, resource nationalism. Resource nationalism. Okay, oil exporters, they were becoming nationalists. Nationalist about their natural resources. They don't want to export. Okay, they don't want to export. So they sort of kind of protect their natural resources, block it from being exported. That's national resource nationalism. So several nationalistic leaders elected in many places, including Russia. Putin came in 1999. Putin was elected 1999. Hugo Chavez was elected 1999. Same president Colombia, same president Nigeria. All leftist, anti-American leaders were elected almost at the same time. Right? Almost at the same time. What a coincidence. Right? So they all blamed America and protected their natural resources. That's resource nationalism. And second reason, so supply-demand reason. Second reason, there's a lot of money invested into energy futures market. Energy futures market. Okay? Energy has become a very lucrative investment tool at that time, 2000, at that time. That brought up oil prices. That brought up oil prices. You see how oil prices explain the behavior of the leaders of oil producers, like Putin. He was here, right, 2 weeks ago. You know, the relationship between Russia and Korea, like a topsy-turvy history of Russia-Korea. We are strategic partners, but both are suspicious of each other. And Putin's state visit this time, left a very bad image about Russia 2 weeks ago. Putin held our president, the lady president, waiting for him 40 minutes this time. Unprecedented, very unusual in state meetings. Visiting president, right? Making the host waiting for more than half an hour, right? Very unusual. But I guess that he did it on purpose. He did it on purpose. And he's known for doing the same thing in many different places, right? But he doesn't do that with the German president. He never does that with Italian prime minister. Because German, Russian, Italian, Russian, they are key strategic partners about energy. Okay? He does that to show Russian power. He giving a clear message that who runs the show, right? That's Russian, I think, that comes in Russian blood. So he did it on purpose. I'm very much clear about that. And sort of a foremost, the secret agent turned president, he became president in 1999, came in, and almost at the same time, oil prices began to rise, right? That helped him a lot. And oil prices, 100%, there's a 100% match between oil price movement and Putin's behavior. As oil prices go up, Putin becomes more and more arrogant. Okay? Then his oil income, right, grows, right? Then his behavior becoming much more arrogant. 2000, oil prices slowly begin to rise. 2002, 3, slowly rise. 2004, peak. I mean, the takeoff stage. So 2000, 2001, 2, 3, these are taxing stage before flight. 2004, takeoff stage. Oil prices begin to really shut up. Then Putin begins to be really, really arrogant. 2004, 2005. Then he begins to attack the United States directly. Right? 6, 7, 8, the peak point of Russian power. Okay? So there's a 100% match between oil price movement, Putin's behavior, and Russian income also. Right? Then 2008, global economic crisis, financial crisis, oil prices plummeted. Russian income began to decrease. Then troubles began to appear in Russia. Right? At the end, he got divorced. Right? Putin divorced, right? Did you know that Putin was? Yes. And he got, his face began to change. I don't know how many of you looked at his face. His face, very unnatural. He got some Botox treatment, right? The side effects of Botox treatment, his face was swelled like this, right? So very ugly. Very ugly, and his personal life was in big trouble. Likewise, his country reputation is also declining. And so the point is, energy crisis, 2000 energy crisis. Okay? Now, period 5, the last period, which is not contained in this textbook. Period 5 is the period of unconventional energy. Period 5 is the period of unconventional energy. About unconventional energy, you need to read Paul Stevens' article. Paul Stevens, the British scholar Paul Stevens. It's a well-written, good source of good introduction to unconventional energy. Then, what is unconventional stage? Unconventional stage is this. Russia, Nigeria, Venezuela, Iran, they are all enemies of the United States, right? They're all enemies. And they challenged the US based on high oil prices. Okay, oil, it was oil, right? Not simply Middle East. Now, unconventional energy is the technological breakthrough, okay? Technological breakthrough in both oil and gas. Both oil and gas. That made major oil consumers, oil and gas consumers, free of these former exporting countries. Okay? So this is called a game changer. Game-changing shift has been made because of this unconventional revolution. Number one, production location changes from Middle East, Russia, Africa to North America. US, Canada will be leading producers of unconventional energy. So we need to think about what will happen to the Middle East, or what will happen to Russia when Canada and the United States produces oil and gas, more oil and gas than the Middle East or than Russia. Is this a real game changer? What political changes? Right? Then what is unconventional energy? Right? What is unconventional energy? Conventional energy is both oil and gas that is produced in a conventional manner. Conventional manner. Now, unconventional gas, okay? Unconventional gas is gas that is extracted 3,000 or 4,000 kilometers underground. 3,000 or 4,000 kilometers underground. That is unconventional natural gas. So the difference between conventional gas, unconventional gas is the layer that is extracted. Conventional gas, 1,000 deep. Unconventional gas, 3,000 or 4,000 deep. That's the difference. Okay, depth. Second difference, unconventional natural gas uses special technology. Special technology. That is not used conventional development. Two key technologies. One is horizontal well drilling. Horizontal drilling. Horizontal drilling. This layer closer to land surface is a place where conventional oil and gas is extracted. 1,000 kilometers at the most, right? And this layer, usually between 3,000, 4,000, much deeper. This layer is called shale rocks. These are not rocks, but these are rocks. Okay? These are rocks. So if you want to extract it here, vertical drilling. Okay? You get the pipe into, right, this layer, then gas comes out of it. But this rock is different. Vertical doesn't work. Okay? First you go vertically, then you go horizontally. This is horizontal drilling. So number one key technology is horizontal well drilling, okay, which is really brand new state-of-the-art technology, which is developed early 2000. You go horizontally. But since this is rock, okay, as you go horizontally, you need to fracture. You need to fracture these rocks using water. You use water to frack it. So this is called hydraulic fracturing. So-called fracking. Frack. So these two technologies, horizontal and hydraulic fracturing. What? What happened? So this is how shale gas developed. This technology is developed in Texas. Okay? When 2009, America made a commercial breakthrough. 2009. Okay? Then now America produces more natural gas than Russia. Okay, so this is period 5. Read Paul Stevens' article. One more. In terms of reserve, which is bigger? Conventional is bigger, unconventional is bigger. Unconventional is bigger. Much bigger. Yes. What? Oh, meter. 3,000 meter. Sorry. Yeah, not kilometer. 3,000 meter.